Hey everyone, I just want to do an update video to my original one since now I'm slightly less camera shy. But anyway, I want to talk about kind of my journey so far, where I come from, where I hope to go, where I want to be, stuff like that. So basically, to start off, I always was interested in technology back in high school. I got started with it with a little Arduino kit, which is basically like an electronics kit, which is you have a little microprocessor board and you can hook up LEDs and stuff for anyone who doesn't know. I still love working with them. They're great to tinker with, and I'm so grateful that that's how I started out with technology and learning how to code. Started with C++ or a variant thereof, and just kind of learned and grew my skills from there. I was on my high school robotics team for 4 years, and by the end of it I was writing all the code, doing all the wiring, helping with the mechanical design. I mean, I probably built a majority of that robot overall, just seeing the process through, and I loved that and I enjoyed it. And so I wanted to do that in college. So my plan was to go to college for computer science because I really wanted to learn programming and more about computers and how they work and all that fun stuff on a basic level. And so that was my goal. And I actually ended up taking a gap year and going and played a year of junior hockey. I used to be a goalie in hockey and did that for 12, 13 years. And I really enjoyed that. So I got the opportunity to do that. Played out my high school, my junior, pee-wee, young youth hockey all the way through high school. And then I got the opportunity to play a year in juniors, which is kind of like an in-between league between high school and college. And then got done with that year of juniors, decided I'm ready to start college, kind of move on, and ended up going to a college, 4 year for computer science, and still playing a little bit of club hockey on the side. And I finished that first year of college, and I was just like, man, this is kind of really expensive. I know a bunch of this stuff already that I've self-taught myself. I was like, I don't know if this is really worth the amount of money they want every year. So I started looking around and ended up finding an online college because I didn't want to give up on the amount of credits and stuff that I'd already earned between high school and that first year in person. So I transferred online and ended up doing that for the next 3 years. So while I was going to school for that, I worked bunch of different jobs, from CNC machining to carpentry and just a lot of kind of blue collar stuff. And I enjoyed it. It was, the physical aspect was very rewarding for me. And I enjoyed seeing things built with my hands and being able to share that with someone. You can, bring home an extra spare part or something, a little piece that you made that didn't quite make production or whatever, but it's still a little token to show what you're doing, what you can make, and it was tangible, and that was really rewarding. Same with doing carpentry. You could drive by a house and say, hey, I painted that one, or yeah, we built that deck over there, we resided that house. Maybe not so much the interior stuff, but people have a better concept. They're able to visualize better with tangible things like that. So, doing that trade work was really rewarding, and I'm glad I did it. It built character, built some grit and determination, and, made me a little bit more resilient. So I'm thankful for that. But a lot of it didn't really jive with my mental side of things. I wasn't as challenged as much, and from a young age, I've always wanted to learn things, think about things in a different way and just challenge myself and just grow mentally and just try to learn new things and improve, myself as a person and what I'm able to do, my skills and abilities. And I think that's very important in life, is to have a balanced outlook between, what you're doing physically and mentally. The two are not mutually exclusive by any means. They are very much intertwined, and I think that you can't really have success without having both. Like, the mind and body are so interconnected, and you have to be physically disciplined and mentally disciplined in order to succeed. And so I learned a lot of that physical discipline while I was, working trades and doing carpentry and machining and such. And I even got my CDL at one point, thinking I was going to drive truck, but that never really worked out. And I realized that, that's a pretty lonely life, and I have to give hats off to everyone who does it, because I tried it for a little bit, and it's brutal. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just a truck driver. Until you go through it, you don't realize, you don't respect, exactly, how much sacrifice goes into a job like that. And so I have nothing but respect for those truckers out on the road, and it gives you a different perspective on things, for that, and then specifically, and then the trades as a whole. It's something I think everyone should at least try a little bit of, just so they can gain an appreciation of it. And so that was, the rest of the time that I was finishing out my college online, I was working trades, and finally finished up my degree recently and had my graduation ceremony, which was kind of cool. So I'm done with it. I got the piece of paper that says you did it, and I learned a few things, but really it was more so just to get the degree, to have that piece of paper, which, nowadays is interesting, because it's like not a degree I would probably go for, looking at current things in current times with the state of AI and everything. So it was one of those things where the timing just didn't work out great, but what can you do, right? So, finish what you started, and, just be happy with the process. And I learned a lot, both from, just dealing with the online college and, learning what I could from there, and then just learning my own stuff independently and separately. And that's where most of my growth has come from, is, online resources, teachers, the ability to learn from them and just be self-taught, look things up, try things out, fail, try again, tweak this, tweak that, take this template from somebody, play with it, make it your own, and then do your own thing. And that's kind of gotten me to where I am now. And I've had some inspirations along the way. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think part of it was because my dad owned a business growing up, and everyone looks up to their parents, hopefully. I know there's certain situations and whatnot, but in general, you hope to look up to your parents. And for me, that was a big inspiration. So I've always had that kind of entrepreneurial drive, and I wanted to, have my own business and start out for myself and go that route. And it's been a little bit of a struggle. It's frustrating not being able to do that. And, I hate to say, like, oh, I'm not a good employee or something. I work as hard as I can at whatever job I have, but there comes a certain point where I just can't take, working for someone else's schedule to build their dreams. And, I'll work as hard as I can, and I'm still going to do a good job, but I was never satisfied, and so I was always looking for that next step. And eventually I got to the point where I just said, screw it, and I'm going to have to just risk the safety of a paycheck in order to try to build the dreams that I want, and to to go out and make it on my own, to try to be an entrepreneur. And so that's where I sit now. And recently, I've learned a lot from Alex Hormozy in the way of just general business and the way to look at things. I think he has a great mindset. Whatever people say about him, it's hard to go against what he says from a mindset and just work ethic and positivity standpoint. And so he serves as a big role model for me in that aspect. But my recent inspirations come from a New Zealander who is kind of one of the heads of AI automation right now, and that's Liam Otley. And I've been learning a lot from the content he's provided recently, and I'm so thankful that he's made that available to share with everyone. And so I hope that I can branch off of that, and once I get going, I'm able to share my skills and what I've learned, and give back just in the way he has. And I think everyone who takes something should at least give it back, kind of like a give and take, where you want to leave things better than where you left them, and just help others who have that same drive and just want to succeed and build something else, to build something cool, whatever that dream would be. But I want to make automations and AI and to help people. A big thing, obviously, whenever you're starting a business is, you're number one to help yourself. But that shouldn't be the only reason. You should want to do good for yourself and do good for others, and just, try to build things. Don't consume. Don't always be consuming. You want to be, building more, putting out more than you take in. And that's the goal for me, is to have a business, to be able to provide services, and to create more than I consume. So that's the goal. I'm not sure how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to figure it out. Everyone's like, everyone who's successful always says that. So again, like cliche, and you hope you're going to be successful, but you really don't know. And it all pivots around your work ethic and your heart, your drive, and a little bit of luck too. A lot of these people, they don't acknowledge that, you can work really hard and really smart, but sometimes you need a little bit of luck. So I'm hoping that, if I work hard enough, a little bit of luck will, stick on my side, and we can go from there. But that's kind of my story and my mindset. And so I'm hoping that, in the coming videos and such, I plan on starting some tutorials about automation and some automation tools. And maybe I'll even just do some, basic ChatGPT or Claude kind of basic chatbot tutorials for people who may not even, know what those tools are or how to use them, which is, it's always hard to step outside yourself, because you think, man, well, just doesn't everyone think that? Like, everyone knows about this now. But when you go out and talk to people in the real world, and you realize some of them don't know what ChatGPT is, they just hear about AI and they think it's this boogeyman. And, even I think that to a certain extent, that some of it is a little scary where we're taking things, and I'm not necessarily 100% on board with everything that AI has to offer. But there's no getting rid of it at this point, and you have to take the good with the bad. And so my goal is to use AI for good and to improve and grow the good things as much as possible, and just to, bring people along, get them up to speed, and just hopefully create a net benefit. But with that, I suppose I'll end this, and I just thank you all for being here. If anyone's even here, which is fine. Maybe one person will see this one day, and if not, I'll see it and I know that I made this, and that's something, right? I made a video. I didn't watch a video, someone else's video. I made my own to share with the world. So I've created something, and that's the goal. Be a net positive.